And this is something here that I'd never recommend doing out of the gate ever, because notice what happens here. If I put, let's just put Frank Kern, one interest. I know that this is basic for a lot of you guys, but don't worry, we'll get more strategic here. Frank Kern, 400 million people in these countries. Oh, that's weird. If I take out Frank Kern, my audience doesn't change. It's the same. That's because I have expanded targeting. So if I put Frank Kern back in and I uncheck this, this goes down to 410,000. So we got a question here from Ben. Theoretically, starting Facebook ads from scratch without existing pixel data or an email list for using custom audiences and lookalikes, is it still advised to start with interest targeting for mass market consumer products, or would you test a no targeting campaign? So good question there. I think number one, 100% I would do interest targeting out of the gate, always, especially if you have a brand new account. You're going to see with a new account, new campaign, some things like optimization methods that we talk about might not work as well right away. Like certain further down the funnel optimization might not work. You might have to start out optimizing on lead or even something like that. My guess is in your situation with the mass consumer appeal product, what's the price point? You're probably going to be totally fine and want to optimize on purchase in your case. But there's some cases where we have clients that want to optimize on a webinar purchase, right? Or an appointment booking. And we put a price tag on that, like a $10 fake price on an appointment booking, and we optimize on purchase. But like sometimes with newer campaigns, where like Shane, who's in our gesturing group, perfect example. So far for him, he wasn't getting good results by optimizing on an appointment booking because the volume isn't high enough yet. Doesn't have any data at all. It's a totally brand new account. He's optimizing on lead, and that's working the best. Down the road a little bit, I have a feeling we're gonna go back. I'm gonna have him go back to optimizing on purchase again, which is really not really a purchase. It's a let me show this one. I'm talking about this stuff. So in your case, so like in his case, new account, the goal is to get appointments, right? So we have ad, we have opt lead, and then we have appointment. So right now we're optimizing. This right here is a $10 purchase. That's how we do it. And it works really well for us. By far, the purchase optimizations work way better. You can also have campaigns optimizing on leads. Campaigns are ad sets. So I'm going to put optimization here, lead optimization. In his case, the optimizing on purchase isn't working yet because it's newer, but down the road, it will. I guarantee it. Right now, everything is leads. So in your case, it's a similar situation. It's just totally, it's like a cousin to that. So you have a mass appeal offer, right? Mass appeal consumer. And your question is, should I test out no targeting? So number one, I would do test several interests groupings. So you have these are smaller, not super large interests, so these are interests that might be 500K to $1 million, or maybe even, let's just make that like 200K or something to $1 million, just whatever, 100K to $1 million. So that are grouped together, right? So you have a 500K, you have 700, you have maybe 1.2 million, and they're all similar. They're all like based off around the same television show or same magazine. Maybe there's 3 interests based on one magazine and one thought leader or Oprah or something like that. You have Oprah, and then you have maybe like Oprah's book club, and those might be 3 or 4 interest groupings. So I would test several interest groupings stuff. So I'll pull up my ads manager here and pull up targeting while we're doing this too. Okay, so this is a bunch of interests together that we have here. If I was just starting out, this is brand new and I didn't know this is not what I would do. I would maybe start testing this down the road a little bit, maybe even a couple weeks in, depending on how much budget we had, maybe right away. But initially out of the gate, I would combine like maybe Brendan Burchard, and we do this. You'll find other ad sets where we totally do this. Maybe Brendan Burchard, Tony Robbins, those guys are together. And then another one might be just direct response, digital marketing gurus like Ryan Dice, Mike Dillard, all those kind of guys. And then you have the Frank Kern, and then you have the that may be another ad set, 3 or 4. Perry Marshall would be in that one. So would Russell Brunson, and then I might have another one that's software. And we totally have other ad sets like this, where I've got Infusionsoft together and I've got HubSpot maybe, and I've got some of those other maybe social media software. And then another one, maybe mass social media interests like Gary Vee. Amy Porterfield could potentially be in that, even though Amy Porterfield can potentially be in that other audience, right? And so you have notice. So within these, I have a lot. This right here, if I was just starting out, and normally what we would do, this would be like probably 5 different ad sets, trying to group the similar ones together, see how they do, right? Then down the road, we want to test out more broader. So let's delete these. And this is something here that I'd never recommend doing out of the gate ever, because notice what happens here. If I put, let's just put Frank Kern, one interest. I know that this is basic for a lot of you guys, but don't worry, we'll get more strategic here. Frank Kern, 400 million people in these countries. Oh, that's weird. If I take out Frank Kern, my audience doesn't change. It's the same. That's because I have expanded targeting. So if I put Frank Kern back in and I uncheck this, this goes down to 410,000. I went from 400 million to 410,000. The algorithm still knows that you have these interests in here. That's why the expanded can be good once you have data, and sometimes even out of the gate. You know, don't be afraid to test this, even if you have a new campaign. If I had a new campaign and I knew that Frank Kern was by far the best interest, and there wasn't that many interests that I can find that work with my audience, maybe I only have like 3. And that's the case a lot of times. You know, you don't have a lot to choose from. In that case, I might say, hey, I'm going to have a small ad set. I mean, maybe I'm going to start out with ad set budget optimization. And if I'm optimizing on, let's say we're optimizing on the goal is to get a CPL of $10, say $12. You know, I could have a lot of $20 budgets if I wanted to. Ideally, we want to get to a little bit higher than that, like maybe 2 or 3 times that on a daily budget. But we could be at the beginning, when I'm really at the beginning stages, I might have $20 a day. I'd like to be at least at 30, but I could have a bunch of $20 a day ad sets if I wanted to, because some ad sets are going to get like $3 leads probably, or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, right? And so I could say, hey, I want to have one of these that has Frank Kern. I want to have another $20 a day that maybe has Ryan Dice. And let's say those are like the only ones that I can think of. And maybe I have another one that's $10 a day, or maybe at 20 as well, depending on how you feel. That's Frank Kern with expanded clicked. So there's no reason you can't test it. It's only money, right? So if you're okay with losing a little bit of money, knowing that it's just a test, that's okay. But ideally, this expanded thing, I would rather you wait a couple weeks until, or at least a few days until you got some conversions. But it's not it's not 100% necessary to wait, because the algorithm is super smart, period. And if you're getting conversions, you might find that starting that out right away is not the end of the world. You know, when you're talking about risking money you're really uncomfortable with, that's when you want to start being more careful about doing this stuff a little bit later. You know, the more you're in that testing mode, like, it's okay. I know that I'm going to spend, my goal is to spend $300 a day, and $100 of that's going to be pure just throwing spaghetti at the wall testing. And I'm going to have, 5 ad sets out of that $100. I'm going to do like expanded, and I'm going to do some broader appeal targeting and stuff like that. Okay. So back to this one here, you could do interest groupings, and then you can also test some larger, more topic based topic or behavior audiences, right? So if I go back to here, so digital marketing, this is an interest, but it's a real broad appeal, 175 million. See that? 175 million there. And let's do this. For example, like the other day when on our Jetstream call, we had Shane on, and we saw that management, he was testing management as a broad topic interest. Okay. But this is the one he was using here, 390 million. Okay. But if you look, and the thing is if I type in management, these both show up right here, right? And if that 11 million one is probably going to be more potentially targeted, right? Better. It's 11 million versus 390 million. Now, the reason why he didn't see these both right away is because he had leadership in here initially as an audience. And so when you go to suggested here, you saw management down here, right there. For some reason, that one's showing up now, but this one is the one that was he found first. So this is the one that was running on its own. These are totally different. I would rather have these separate as separate ad sets, because this is so big. Like by putting this with this in one ad set, it's not really going to change anything. It's 10%, So I would rather you have these separate, and you might find that this is the one that works long-term, but out of the gate, no data, brand new account, this one's probably more likely to work better. It's my guess, but you just never know. And it obviously depends on, are you optimizing on it to try to get $12 leads, or you're optimizing on to try to get $50 purchases? If you're trying to get $50 purchases, you're going to have less volume unless you've got really big budgets to play with. So some of these bigger topical demographic or topical interests, here are going to be similar to YouTube targeting. This is basically when you use keyword targeting, this is kind of like what it's like in YouTube. That's why with YouTube, it can take a while. It's going to take you a couple weeks to optimize things on YouTube. You have to have your video and your offer on point big time on YouTube to get this right. But if you do, you can really scale things out.